have to ask you, your program is a reentry program. That is reentry into the world that you left. How many people then re-enter jail?
How many people go back?
Yes.
You know, the numbers are, what, 60%, or it sort of depends. I don't want you to quote me on the exact numbers. The numbers are very high. It sort of depends on how you count. But the numbers are very high.
And I wanted to share something to add on to that. When you're talking about these stats, you got to differentiate between state and federal. Because federal, I'm from federal. So 7 out of 9, the recidivism rate is, out of every 10, 7 come back. That's a high recidivism rate. It's a revolving door, and it's because they are illy preparing us to re-enter to society.
And that's your job, John. Well, I'm not putting the blame on you.
No, but of course, but that's what he's fighting up against. That's what he's fighting against.
Our job is once people come home, but really re-entry should start the day you go in. Right?
Exactly.
That's when the day you go in should be to start preparing for when you come home. And
what do you suggest? How would this work?
Let me give you an example. Is that up until 1996, there were. Let me put it another way, that many of the people that I know who have really been successful coming home from prison went to college while they were in prison. They took college classes, they got an associate's degree or even a BA. Some of them have gotten masters, and that experience really changed their life. In 1996, the federal government, during the Clinton administration, eliminated Pell Grants for people in prison. And what that effectively did, Pell Grants are federal grants that allow you to tuition support, right? And what that effectively did was shut down college prison programs across the country, because that's how they got paid for. So what are we doing here? We're saying we're preventing people in prison from going to college. The one thing that we know that really makes a significant difference in people's ability to get sustainable long-term employment. And we eliminated that. So that's kind of another campaign that's going on. And if there's a message that I have for folks out there is to advocate and support the reinstatement of Pell Grants for people in prison, to support this Ban the Box campaign. Really, really important campaign.
Sure. You talk about prison, you talk about jail. Are they the same?
Not at all. And prison and jail is two different things. Jail is a Rikers Island. You're going to be there for a year, maybe 18 months, waiting to go for your trial or whatever. Prison is where I was at, where my cellie, when I first walked in to my designated jail, had life. And he wanted to see your paperwork. So we got a lot that's going on in prison and on a psychological level to even try to get straight. So I think that reentry must start not before the day that you go to prison, but it should start in these schools that are underfunded. It should start in these neighborhoods that are not rearing children to be productive members of society no more. That's where it starts at. But,
Yeah, so the jail prison thing, as Will is saying, so if you, in New York, if you're convicted of a felony, meaning any crime that has a term of a year or more, then you're going to go upstate to prison. And so that's what we're talking about. If you have a misdemeanor offense that you're convicted of, then you'll spend that time in jail in most likely Rikers Island here in the city. But the important thing about Rikers is that most of the people are not in there because they've been sentenced. They're in there waiting trial. Mm-hmm. They're in there because they can't make bail. That's really why they're there, right? So they're called detainees, right? So there's really two populations in Rikers Island. They're detainees, people awaiting trial, and then people who are sentenced, we say city sentenced, people who are sentenced to less than a year. There's a few people, a smaller percentage, who are kind of waiting to go upstate. But by and large, it's the detainees and city sentenced. And so there are all these people who are really spending this time at Rikers because they can't make bail. It's really what it's all about.
Does your organization get to work with any of those people, or you have to be an attorney and you have to wait until those people come back?
So we have a program out at Rikers Island called the RIDE program. It's Rikers Island Discharge Enhancement Program. So we have an office out there. We engage people while they're on the inside. We help them develop a plan for when they're going to get discharged. We also, while the inside, we bring some resources in to work with them, run different kinds of groups and things to, to help kind of support people. We have a creative writing class and some other kinds of groups like that. And then once they come home, we actually give them a ride off the island because that's a big deal. They release you, at 6 in the morning, right? And then we bring them to Fortune and give them some breakfast, and then we help them get to where they want to be, and we kind of stay working with them for the next 90 days or a year or however long it is to help them get kind of reconnected. It's hard, though. It's really hard.
I'm sure.
It's really hard.
Yeah, I imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, most people are homeless when they come out, right? If you went away for 5, 8, 10 years and you come back, the chances are that you don't really have a place to live, right? And you know what the housing situation here is in New York. It's really difficult, right? So that's one of the things we do is try to help people at least get into some kind of transitional housing. We have a residence of our own up on Riverside Drive in West Harlem, but it has like 60, 68 beds, so it doesn't really begin to serve the need.
Will, you have moved on.
Yes.
What is this Will the trainer?
All right, well, Will, the bad boy trainer, is the owner and operator of Kinetic Fitness. This is a personal training studio that I run in Park Slope, Brooklyn. When I came home from prison, I did utilize some reentry programs that I had to pretty much research on my own. But one of them was Wildcats, and at Wildcats, you had to last 2 weeks, know how to tie a tie, and don't be late. Do you know that half the guys couldn't make it? Do you know that half the men walking around now wearing hats to the side like me don't know how to tie a tie? What a shame. Long story short, I ended up getting hired at Bellevue Hospital in industrial housekeeping because when I was in there, I got that trade because I'm thinking, like you said, when I come home, who would be more likely to hire me? TD Bank or a hospital cleaning up some feces? So I prepared myself for that. I always wanted to be a trainer, so in there I was studying and preparing, and plus that's what my degree is. So I ended up finding out that an old friend of mine was the PT manager at Crunch. Long story short, I went, I saw it, he hired me. I worked for the company for 18 months, reaching my goal of making $7,000 a month. And I said, wow, if I'm going to do that for them, I could do it for me. And Kinetic Fitness was... Huh?
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, and that's what you got to... That's the key to reentry, knowing that don't come home expecting any handouts because they ain't going to sure and give you none before you went in. So they ain't going to give you none when you get out. So you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And that's what Will the Bad Boy Trainer does. So he catch you from any area. I train, my youngest client is 7 years old. My oldest is 74. I do everything from post-rehabilitation to sports fitness and conditioning to basic training on 2 fronts. Not only basic training, meaning I can basically get you fit, but I can basically prepare you to take the fire department test by simulating it, the police test, all these other city and state tests where you have some type of physical component, you can come to Kinetic Fitness.
Are there people who try to get you to go back?
Always. When I first came home, I started off with nothing, like I said, but a broom in Bellevue. And when I saved my money, I bought some resistor bands and a Pilates mat. My whole hood, because I'm good in the hood, that mean I ain't snitch. So when you come home, everybody, yo, you still laying them down? You doing this, you doing that? Nobody offered to give me a Metro card. No one bought me a tie or a button-up shirt. And it was sad to see that 8.5 years, people were still on the same block, doing the same thing, you know?
John, one final word from you. I really got to congratulate you, and I'm sure Bill does the same thing as well. Bill
saw the same Bad Boy Trainer.
You know, people come to Fortune every day. We see 3,000, 4,000 people a year at Fortune. People come every day. They're trying to change their life, you know. As Will said, there are no handouts. There's no handouts. People are really struggling. They go away. They spend a long time in prison. It's a chance for them to think, to really kind of get themselves centered and focused. But they come back and they face a really hostile society. And mainly they're coming back to really just 7 or 8 neighborhoods in New York City. The prison population in New York State is largely located in 7 or 8 neighborhoods in the city. It has a tremendous impact on those communities. And anything we can do to support stronger reentry, policies will really make a difference, not just for those individuals, but for the people in those communities, and really the people in the whole city.
I'm getting that wrap-up signal, but I'm going to have you back. I think this has been educational for so many of us. John Gordon
Pleasure.
from the Fortune Society, and Will the Bad Boy Trainer. I want to congratulate both of you, John, for the work that you're doing to help people like Will, and Will for the fact that you have decided that you ain't going back.
I ain't going back.
And you're going to be an entrepreneur and be a guiding light for so many people who need that kind of guiding light.
Inshallah.
Thank you.